Ahmad Shah Massoud, a famous Afghan leader and fighter. This is his story. Welcome to Historic Minds. Ahmad Shah Massoud was born on September 2nd, 1953, in Bazarak, a town in the Panjshir Valley of northern Afghanistan. He belonged to the Tajik ethnic group and was a Sunni Muslim. He grew up in a family of civil servants and military officers and was influenced by his father's patriotic and religious values. He was also interested in literature, poetry, and history, and learned several languages, including Dari, Pashtun, Arabic, French, and English. Massoud attended the Polyethnical University of Kabul, where he studied engineering. He also joined the Muslim Youth, a religious and political movement led by Burhanuddin Rabbani, a professor of Islamic law. Massoud became involved in the opposition against the government of Muhammad Daoud Khan, who had overthrown the monarchy in 1973 and established a republic. In 1975, Massoud participated in a failed uprising in the Panjshir Valley, which was brutally suppressed by the government forces. Massoud escaped to Pakistan, where he received military training and political education from the Muslim Brotherhood, an Islamist organization. In 1978, Daoud was killed in a coup by the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan, the PDPA, a communist party that aligned itself with the Soviet Union. The PDPA launched a series of radical reforms that provoked resistance and rebellion amongst the majority of the Afghan population, who were mostly rural, conservative, and devout Muslims. The PDPA also faced internal divisions and power struggles, which led to another coup in 1979, in which Hafizullah Amin, a hardline communist, seized power and executed his predecessor, Nur Muhammad Taraki. In response to the turmoil and instability in Afghanistan, the Soviet Union decided to intervene militarily and support the PDPA regime. In December 1979, the Soviet army invaded Afghanistan and killed Amin, replacing him with Babrak Karmal, a more moderate communist. The Soviet intervention triggered a massive and prolonged resistance by the Afghan people, who formed various armed groups known as the Mujahideen, meaning holy warriors. The Mujahideen were supported by various countries, especially the United States, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and China, who saw the Soviet invasion as a threat to their interests and influence in the region. Massoud returned to Afghanistan and joined the Jamaat-e-Islami, one of the main Mujahideen factions led by Rabbani. Massoud became the leader of the Panjshir Front, a guerrilla force that operated in the Panjshir Valley and the surrounding areas. Massoud used his knowledge of the terrain, his mobility, his charisma, and his strategy to resist the Soviet army, which tried to capture the Panjshir Valley several times but failed. Massoud earned the nickname Lion of Panjshir among his followers and admirers. He also established a civil administration and social services in the area under his control, and promoted education, health, and justice. He sought to create a broad and inclusive alliance among the different Mujahideen factions, ethnic groups, and religious sects, and advocated for a democratic and pluralistic system of government for Afghanistan. In 1988, the Soviet Union signed a peace agreement with Pakistan and the United States and agreed to withdraw its troops from Afghanistan by February 1989. The withdrawal was seen as a victory and a humiliation for the Soviet superpower, which soon collapsed in 1991. However, the withdrawal also left a power vacuum and a civil war in Afghanistan, as the Mujahideen factions fought against themselves for control of the country. The PDPA regime, renamed as the Republic of Afghanistan, managed to survive until 1992, when it was toppled by a coalition of Mujahideen groups who formed the Islamic State of Afghanistan. Massoud was appointed as the Minister of Defense and the chief military commander of the new government, which was headed by Rabbani as the president. Massoud tried to stabilize the country and implement a national reconciliation progress, but faced opposition and resistance from other Mujahideen factions. especially the Hezb-e-Islami, a radical Islamist and former ally of Massoud. Ahmad, who was backed by Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, refused to recognize the government and launched a campaign of violence and terror against it, especially in the capital, Kabul, where he bombarded the city with rockets and artillery, causing thousands of civilian casualties and massive destruction. Massoud defended Kabul against Hekmatyar's attacks, as well as against other warlords and militias who were fighting for power and resources. Massoud also faced a new and emerging threat from the Taliban, a fundamentalist Islamic movement that emerged from the ranks of the Afghan refugees and students in Pakistan. The Taliban, who claimed to restore peace, order, and Islamic law in Afghanistan, were supported by Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The Taliban quickly conquered most of the country and reached the gates of Kabul in 1995. Massoud resisted the Taliban's advance and formed a new alliance with other anti-Taliban forces known as the United Islamic Front for the Salvation of Afghanistan, or the Northern Alliance. The alliance included various ethnic and religious groups such as Tajiks, Uzbeks, Hazaras, and Shia Muslims who were persecuted and oppressed by the Taliban, who were mostly Pashtun and Sunni Muslims. The alliance also received support from Iran, Russia, India, and the United States, who became concerned about the Taliban's links with al-Qaeda, a terrorist organization led by Osama bin Laden, a Saudi-born militant who had fought with the Mujahideen against the Soviets, but later turned against them and their allies. Massoud and his alliance managed to hold on to a small portion of northern Afghanistan, where they established a base and a government. Massoud continued to fight against the Taliban and also tried to negotiate with them and persuade them to join a peaceful and democratic solution for the country. Massoud also warned the international community about the threat of al-Qaeda and the possibility of a terrorist attack on the United States. Massoud also advocated for a global coalition against terrorism and extremism and called for a dialogue and cooperation among different civilizations and cultures. On September 9, 2001, Massoud was assassinated by two suicide bombers who posed as journalists and interviewed him in his headquarters in Khwaja Bahuddin, a town in the Takhar province of northern Afghanistan. The bombers, who were later identified as members of al-Qaeda, detonated explosives hidden in their camera and belt, killing Massoud and several of his aides. Massoud's assassination was seen as a prelude and a preparation for the September 11th attacks, which occurred 2 days later in the United States, and which were carried out by al-Qaeda operatives. Massoud's death was mourned and condemned by his supporters and allies, as well as by many Afghans and people around the world who recognized his role and contribution in the struggle for freedom, justice, and peace in Afghanistan and beyond. Massoud was buried in his native Panjshir Valley, where thousands of people attended his funeral. Massoud was posthumously awarded the National Hero of Afghanistan title by the Afghan government, and the Order of the Ismaili Samani by the Tajik government. Massoud's legacy and vision are carried on by his family, his followers, and his admirers who continue to fight for a democratic and prosperous Afghanistan. The memory of Massoud to this day continues to rally people around the cause and fight against the Taliban. Thank you for watching.